Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Som TV podcast, a podcast where we talk about wine cameos in films. Welcome back, Jonah Beer. How are you, my friend?
I'm so good, my friend. It is great to be back and talking about our favorite things, man. Movies and wine. I just can't get enough.
Whenever we do these podcasts, I know that half of the audience just drops the hell off immediately, but then there's a very passionate group because I know I get these direct messages. And I'll get people that say, like, you got to do this movie or you got to do this series. They'll be like, have you seen season 2, episode 9 of Love Boat? You won't believe it. And I'm like, what the hell? People are like so deep. They love these. So this podcast is reaching people more than just my mom. And I made it a point to take one of my films that I picked. We're each going to do 2 movies today, really quick. I made it a point to pick a film that's one of our listeners. In fact, it is the most requested film of all time for me personally. I have people saying, you got to do this movie. You got to talk about the wine in it. Wine is so important. I'm just glad to be doing this with you again. It's sort of my favorite thing. Guys, if you're listening to this podcast, ladies, gentlemen, everybody, you got to subscribe to Som TV. It is incredibly important to us, your support, but also, there are 50 episodes going over every single region in the world. There are over 1,000 pieces of content on there where you can learn about every single wine region, some of the best restaurants in the world, James Beard award-winning shows. We've been nominated 3 years in a row and won twice. Just letting you know, somtv.com, if you don't subscribe, that is what supports all of this happening. So we love you listening, but please help us out, subscribe, watch our content. Here we are. This is our 6th, maybe, wine draft? Wine cameos?
At least. Yeah.
Yeah, this one, we picked 2 movies each. I will say one of mine is about as dark as you can be for a film, and one is the complete opposite.
You did a good light and dark and night there. I like that.
Why don't you go first, and then I'll do mine second. And I'm dying to hear. You've been telling me you got something special.
All right.
Okay. All right. What do we got?
I've got 2. I'm a big fan of both of these films. I know that you're going to want a listener turn the volume down by 2 notches, because when I say this film, Jason's going to go bananas and he's going to say he's got a lot he wants to talk about and he's going to have opinions and it's going to be great. But I think I'm going to have a slightly hot take for you on this one. But my first film up is Inglourious Bastards.
Yes,
Quentin Tarantino dynamo film. I mean, first of all,
my favorite Tarantino. I said it. I said it.
I can't.
It's my favorite.
I'm not shocked and I'm not surprised, and I would have a hard time not putting it first. I mean, obviously Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, they all get like their great props. This one, though, to me, as great as they all are, this one has that tempo and that beat to it where you are wound up like a top, ready to spin through the whole thing. Like, he never lets you off the hook until like really the very, very, very end. I love this movie. I think it's a great example of what he does so well. It gave us so many quotable lines. It gives us, you get Landa, you get Aldo, you get all these characters that are just out of nowhere.
That's a bingo. Sorry, I should be. I'm sorry.
I mean, if my friend Josh Kretschmer is listening, one of the characters has given him a nickname that he's every once in a while is like, all right, enough of that. So I tell you,
I know, Josh. I'm gonna throw one out here and go that people call him the Bear Jew or something, right?
You got it. You got it. I mean,
Josh
he's got
is
the
on
hair
Som TV.
for it.
Listen, Josh. He's on Som TV doing what pairings for Hanukkah and
for
stuff
Hanukkah,
like that.
right?
So I mean, that's just too good.
What pairs with the tears of Abraham? I don't know, but I'll tell you, he's hairy enough to be the Bear Jew, and he's often angry enough. No, I'm kidding. He's a sweetheart of a fella. Okay, so here's the wine though. I have 2 bottles. I'm actually going to point out 2 bottles, and I want to grade them, but I want to hear your take on both.
God, how did I not pick this movie? God.
Yeah, I was rewatching it for the 10th time and said to myself, I can't believe we've not talked about this. Okay, 2 scenes. One, when Shoshana is brought to the restaurant, kind of at the instruction of Goebbels, and they're sitting in that French bistro, and Landa arrives and is there, and she's kind of sitting still so that he doesn't recognize her.
Where they have the strudel, right? The apple strudel, that one?
Exactly. And they're pouring champagne around the table. It is, of course, Perrier Jouet. It is the Belle Epoque, the flower bottle. They're having it there. It's very celebratory. The bottle makes a reappearance when they're in the basement bar and they're ready to and the Germans are there having like a little party. They're drinking schnapps and they're drinking that champagne. They send it over to the Americans posing as the Germans.
Ah, bravo, wirklich beeindruckend.
Ja. Und weil ich die richtige Antwort gefunden habe, müssen Sie jetzt alle austrinken.
Prost.
Prost.
So that wine appears twice, and it's both in these very kind of like German celebratory moments, these Nazi moments, and it fits to me. It's the right thing. They would be drinking expensive champagne which they have of course stolen, and they would be just kind of reveling in it without any thought. So, what do you think about that wine in that scene?
I think it works. I mean, honestly, like I always think more about the scotch and, and like when he holds up the two fingers and, and gets busted for
when he asked for three.
Three.
Yeah.
For three.
For the schnapps, like, I think it was.
So it's for the schnapps, but they're also drinking, there's whiskey and they're drinking different stuff. And I never really thought about the fact that she asked for champagne. So it would make complete sense. That's where she's injured, and she says she hurt herself in a climbing
that's
before,
accident because she gets hurt in that scene. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she gets hurt.
That's what later on at the theater
leaves her shoe. Yeah. I think it's right. I mean, it makes sense. It would be the right. They had that wine. It was around. In fact, we did a whole documentary on. Oh no, are you about to bunk that? Did they not have that Belle Epoque?
Not until 1964. They started it in 1902. It was first hand painted in 1902 by Art Nouveau painter and glassmaker Émile Jallet, who did the original one of these Japanese flowers, these anemone that are on the bottle. It disappeared into the cellar at Perrier for 62 years and didn't pop back up until 1964. So it actually was not available for them to have in 1945.
Oh my God. That's unbelievable.
So I give it an F for missing that point. But yeah.
Oh my God.
It's incredible.
That's actually terrible that they missed this. This ruined the movie. This is like my fifth best Tarantino film now. That's it.
Okay. No, number one, it doesn't ruin the movie. And two, if you Google search for this, they talk about how the bottle first appeared in 1902, which is true, but they didn't redo it until 1964. So there is this huge gap in the Perrier-Jouët timeline of when it didn't appear. So for that, I give it an F for casting because they missed that. But the second bottle, I'm going to give them an A+. And this is for the very end after the theater, and Aldo and BJ Novak's character, I'm forgetting on his name. They call him the Little Man. Yeah. They are kind of captured.
Wait. The Germans call me the Little Man?
Yeah.
That's a great part. It's like his only line in the whole film. He's like, wait.
Exactly.
They call me the Little Man?
Yeah, exactly. He gets one thing.
So good.
But they're confronted by Landa, right? And he's going to want them to make the telephone call to get him a deal, right? And what does he serve? Do you remember what he serves the two guys in that scene?
God, I don't. I think it's a red wine.
It's a red wine?
I remember that. I don't know. God, I wish I'd picked this movie. This is such a good...
It's so good. Chianti in a straw bottle. Chianti in the straw bottle, the classic one. And it's almost
Gorlami.
Yeah. It's almost like he's taunting them that they couldn't pass for Italian back in the theater, right? Like he's serving them Italian wine in this bombed bistro where like they're picking up the chairs, and they've got the phone for him to call. But the fact that he finds and serves them Chianti in a straw bottle, just mocking them for their inability to pass as Italian, to me is A+. Like it works on so many levels. It's just, that's the Tarantino genius bit right there.
Okay, can I play devil's advocate on why that's a terrible wine to have there? Do you really believe that bistro has any Italian wine at all, let alone shitty Italian wine? I mean, we're in France.
It's mostly, but we don't know. Maybe this was a rare Italian restaurant in the middle of France.
Yeah, because we all know in these small villages throughout France,
they usually have Italian.
right next to like the place you get your kung pao chicken. They've got an Italian restaurant.
I was absolutely on your side, and I graded it as an F. But the more I thought about like the subtle subtext of him just kind of needling these guys with his Chianti in the straw bottle, I just thought I'm giving it an A plus. It's unlikely, but what the hell?
But here's the other thing, and I could talk forever about this, and I won't. I promise everybody listening. Tarantino is somebody who is a collector of everything: spaghetti westerns and exploitation films and blaxploitation films and horror films and giallo films and you name it. He loves the Hammer horror films. It just is nothing that he doesn't watch and soak in. So that being said, I don't think it's sloppy picks. I think it's just all sorts of different sources coming. He doesn't give a shit. Like if a gun, I bet you if I was a gun person, I could probably find something wrong with maybe the guns they use, or a handgun wouldn't have been
without a doubt. Right.
And who cares? The handgun looked good in his hand. And that's why it's like the right thing, I suppose.
Well, and that's why this exact thought process is why I've come 180 on the Chianti in the straw bottle. I now see it as a genius move versus grading it for its historical likelihood of being in this little town in France, just a stone's throw from a burning theater. So I feel like I give it a pass.
I feel like doing a year plus of scalping Nazis and sleeping under trees and in riverbeds and such. If somebody handed me a glass of Chianti, that would be the greatest wine I ever had in my entire goddamn life. Anyway,
well, it certainly was for the little man.
They call me the little man. All right. Well, this is a great pick, Jonah. I'm floored, and you scooped me on this one. So I'm all right. So
that makes
now,
me happy.
Leaving your family movie you just picked, I'm going to go for a very dark film. And it's about as pitch black dark as you can get. The director himself of my film that I've chosen is an obsessed person with detail. And when I say that, there is nobody like David Fincher. And my pick is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is a remake, or at least a readaptation of a book, a Swedish book called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And it was remade, or it was made into a film in Sweden. But this is the American version with Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara. It is. I watched it again the other night, and I didn't watch it to find wine. There just happened to be an amazing wine scene in it, and there are a lot of wines being poured. But what fascinated me with this is David Fincher, there is nothing. I mean, there's not a button on a shirt. There's not a seagull standing on a roof that he didn't mean to be there. This is a guy who will digitally paint things out that no human being could ever notice, that he is upset. Like, he has a reputation in the business. This is a guy who made Zodiac. And if you ever saw Zodiac, there's thousands of insert shots. And he did like 50 takes on every single one of like somebody picking up a watch. I mean, he's so intense. I mean, Seven is another movie where you look at it, it's perfectly methodical. He's a guy as a director that is probably, and I say this with love and affection, the guy who wouldn't know who I am if I died, but but I say this, he's like the OCDest of OCD directors. It's just complete hyper craziness. Like there's stories during the portrayal of like Zodiac that Robert Downey Jr. started peeing in bottles around the set, saying in protest of having to do hundreds of takes for mundane things. And it's like, this is like on the record that he is like an obsessive, crazy person, David Fincher. So when I see a wine in a David Fincher film, I sit up straight in my chair and I go, what the hell is this? Why did he pick it? So there's a scene. This film is full of very disturbing and tough to watch, but very compelling scenes. So if we can, say that, there is a scene in the film where Stellan Skarsgård, who is
amazing.
I don't want to spoil this film, and it's very spoilable because there's a lot of twists. He turns out to be a very interesting character who's not what he seems, and like most characters in this film. Prior to that, he sits down with Daniel Craig and has a long dinner, and they're drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking, and he keeps pulling up this wine. And I became sort of obsessed with what this wine could be. What is this wine? It is called Chateau Clinet. It is a right bank Pomerol, Bordeaux wine.
Yeah.
And so
I'll
be honest,
by the way.
Never heard of it. Never.
Wow.
I have filmed several times all through that region and all the different regions there. I've been in Pomerol many times. There are a lot more wineries in those places than people realize. There are a tremendous amount of small wineries in those places.
Especially on the right bank.
That's right. Yeah, and the right bank, definitely way more than the left bank.
Right.
And so I'm not surprised that I hadn't heard of this, though I've been to the place. Then I dug into it, and I'm thinking this just got picked for what the hell? Turns out, no. It turns out that this wine in particular happens to be 90-some% of their exports. Guess where they go? Sweden. You can't make this shit up. That David Fincher, and I do believe he was responsible for this, because you can only have people working that are really good, but you can't have them be obsessive like you are. So this particular wine, which it's a 2005 Chateau Clinet from Palmerol, which I was able to find for $209 right now. You can buy it. It's gettable. But it's perfect as a wine that this wealthy guy played by Stellan Skarsgård would drink. And they go through several bottles of it. And our character, Daniel Craig's character, is clearly an alcoholic and needs to continue drinking throughout the entire film. And so it's interesting to watch him drink this wine versus Stellan Skarsgård, who's smelling it, holding it in his hand, treating it like wine, whereas Daniel Craig's character, the writer, is just literally downing. Every sip's a half a glass. Every sip. It's like, I drink a half a glass, and he's talking, and he's clearly in an uncomfortable environment. But it was such an interesting scene, because rather than the wine playing a big role, other than the alcoholism and everybody just needs a reason to be at a table, they picked a wine that if you were in Sweden, you have probably definitely heard of this wine, and it's a Bordeaux. It makes sense. This wealthy family, to me, I got to go A+ out of the insanity of this pick.
It's beyond A+, and I think that. For those that don't know, my wife is Swedish, and so she's read the books in Swedish. She's seen the original movie in Swedish.
Also, her skin color is what I would call see-through.
Yes, she is. She is somewhere on the south side of transparent. But she is so she loves everything Swedish, and goes and visits, goes to their mom. They still have a house up in the north, and every year, she gets a hold of what's called the Systembolaget, which is the Swedish government-run wine shop. And she gets the catalog sent to her, and she finds what's in stock, and then she has them. You can have them sent to your local store to pick up. And we're always marveling at what oddball things they have from like the U.S. and stuff. And then what unbelievable gems you can find in there from Burgundy, from Bordeaux, and from Piedmont, from Barolo. So she is constantly skimming through that. Now, not only is it reasonable that they would have Clinet and this wealthy guy, but the rich and the wealthy of Sweden, they're not going to buy a $5,000 Petrus to have, right? So the fact that this is a good, solid,
of excess.
Correct.
They're not excessive peoples. And if you've been there, you see their houses and their land is not gaudy. It's not.
Exactly. And I remember, I love this movie. First of all, I love this movie. And Fincher, you couldn't be more correct. I mean, even just like Fight Club, the details in Fight Club just are beyond. But I remember his house, this character's house, is that classic Swedish minimalist, plain white walls with one framed black and white photo. And having spent a fair bit of time there, it rings so true. I love this movie. It is disturbing for our younger listeners. This is one to make sure your parents have gone to bed. When you fire up this one, make sure mom and dad are snoring away. And I love this movie.
Who exactly are you talking to right now?
Any youngsters?
13-year-olds who are listening to the Sound TV podcast. Okay.
Exactly. Hey, listen, we have a wide audience, my man. We have a wide audience.
They're not listening anymore, but keep going.
I love this movie. I love this pick. And by the way, I've had this wine a handful of times. I think it's just about as classic, just a really good right bank Bordeaux. Great choice, great wine. Good movie.
Love it. All right. What is your next film?
I am making a hard left turn here. We have just talked, two huge directors, two huge superstars of the space. I'm taking us to a small, I think, rather independent film from a director and writer who I had not heard of doing anything kind of before. So I feel like this is a big one for this person. And I'm talking about the 2021 film starring Nicolas Cage called Pig.
I love this.
Do you know this one?
Okay. I think a lot of people listening have probably seen this movie, but it kind of got. I do. Well, COVID, it is a food film. It's about a truffle hunting pig.
I'm looking for a truffle pig. I don't understand.
I just want to know about the pig.
It would happen in 2021 during COVID. So it's not like it went to theaters. And so it kind of got swallowed up. So if you haven't heard of Pig, which stars Nicolas Cage, who, I mean, I will not tolerate anything bad being said about Nicolas Cage, our country's greatest actor that's ever lived. And what? That's not funny.
No,
that is a true statement.
No. I just love how you had me. I was with you until you always go like 5 steps too far. Like you don't go 1 step too far. Look, he's a national treasure, and I mean that with the pun intended of his great movies.
No pun? Yeah, okay.
No pun intended. But like the greatest actor. Okay, tone it down 2 notches. This film, though, shows you why he actually is great. Like, we all know about leaving Las Vegas.
And Face Off.
Right.
And Face Off.
Right. Okay. All right. We know about leaving Las Vegas, and we know about now Pig. Now, Michael Sarnoski, I didn't know this person. I didn't know his writing or what he's done. To me, this was a real look at this, to me, great writer and filmmaker. It stars Nicolas Cage. It's got Adam Arkin, which is a throwback to my choice of Northern Exposure one time, who Adam Arkin played a key role in that one for a wine cameo.
I mean, you were such a dork. I love this. Keep going.
Listen, I can't help it. But I love, okay, so the movie is about like a Michelin-starred, think beyond one, like a 2-3 Michelin-star chef up in Portland, Oregon, who burns out on everything, really driven by the death of his wife, who moves into the far-flung forests of Oregon and lives in a cabin with his pig and is a truffle hunter. And all he does is hunt truffles that he sells to this young man, Amir, who shows up every Thursday to buy the truffles that he then sells to restaurants around Oregon. He has no idea who Nicolas Cage is. He has no idea how he got there. He's just a guy that gets him truffles. In the very second scene of the movie, someone breaks in and steals his pig. And then the rest of the movie is basically a vengeance play on Nicolas Cage's part, trying to get his pig back or find out what happened. And in the course of it, you realize that he is one of the most famous chefs in the region. He's disappeared. His sous chefs now have lauded restaurants, and he pieces together this almost like scavenger hunt through Oregon to find his pig. And when he finds out that, spoiler alert, the person who's most responsible is Amir's father, played by Adam Arkin, he sets up, to me, one of the most brilliant scenes in movies where he basically finds out that the only great night that Adam Arkin has had, his character has had, was one dinner he had at Chef Robin, Nicolas Cage's restaurant, before his wife attempted suicide. He recreates that meal for him. And he sends Amir to a wine cellar to go into his personal stash and pull a bottle of wine. He recreates the whole meal for Adam Arkin, every dish, every morsel, everything. And Adam Arkin his character is starting to piece together that he's had this meal before, that he's seen this food before, that he's experienced before. But it's when Nicolas Cage's character comes back to the table with a bottle of wine and says, "Your son found this for you." And he pulls the cork and he pours him a glass. And the character takes one sniff and one sip, and the emotions flood over him. He starts weeping. He has to leave the table. It was the wine that pushed him to this unbelievable memory he had almost forgotten about. Mm-hmm. And you see the label for a flash. Now, previously in the film, there's 2 different spots where you could choose the wine, but they were, to choose your friend's parlance, probably Chateau nonsense. Yes. They were probably made up labels. He pulls and shows a glimpse of a label that just drifts by. But if you know Oregon and you know it, it's Cameron Wines. And it is our friend John Paul. It is his reserve Pinot Noir. It's at least 15 years old. We can tell from the context. And it absolutely changes this character's life. I mean, everything about it in a moment.
Now this is excellent. This is a 2012 Pinot from just 20 miles away.
So do you know about the pig?
Why do you want a pig?
It's my pig.
Oh, okay. That's great. That's a great business. It's an expanding industry. It's
Someone stole it.
To me, it's A+ casting because Cameron's
great
not
call.
the
Yeah, this is
flashiest.
good.
It's not the flashiest of Oregon Pinots, right? There's more expensive wines from big brands. This is the insider's one. This is the one that the collector and the som and the chef would know about. And I've had John Paul's wines that are 25 years old. They are stunning. They age with such grace and like a glacier. When I saw it was his label that flashed in front of the camera, I paused it and I'm screaming and sorry. My wife's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "It's John Paul's wine. It's Cameron." It was mine. I loved everything about it, and I love this film, and I love this casting.
This is a great pick, dude. What a fantastic. I never even noticed this moment. Not that I didn't notice they were drinking wine. I just never thought you nailed it. This is good. I love this movie.
It's a
I
good
couldn't
one.
recommend it more. It's kind of one of those movies where going with the right expectations, like it's not an action film, but it's a thoughtful film, and you
Yes.
really do believe that his character truly, he's got the look of most chefs I know in his eyes of like, I would like to die, but unfortunately I have a shift tomorrow and I also have to go pick up onions and, like you can't kill yourself because you gotta
Right.
the American Express dinner's coming up.
Yeah,
So you're like,
right. We got the
shit,
black card member.
I'll kill myself after.
And listen, I think that you're exactly right. And the one little scene that I love that every restaurant person that's listening to this podcast is going to love. There's almost like a fight club for restaurant workers that happens in the middle of the movie, almost
That's right.
inexplicably. It's just fantastic. And so if you've ever had a chef you wanted to beat to a pulp, just watch that scene and let your fantasies come to cinematic life. It is just absolutely a treasure.
Yeah, or to those listening that were that chef, don't watch this.
I think you'd appreciate it too.
Yeah, it's true. It's a great pick. It's a great pick and a great movie to recommend, especially for this audience.
Yeah, Pig and Cameron wines, and just it's just the cherry on top of a very good film.
Love it. Well, so we're on to my last movie here. I have been asked to do this film more than any movie in existence, and it's real on the nose, honestly. But it's a kids movie, and that's the most amazing thing. Well, quote unquote kids. I'm not sure that it's actually a kids movie, but I think it would be a movie that people would say is a kids movie, if that makes any sense. And that is our beloved classic, Ratatouille.
Have you ever had a pet rat?
No.
Did you work in a lab with rats?
Nope.
Perhaps you lived in squalor at some point?
Nobody knew.
You know something about rats! You know you do!
You know who do, wackadoo. Rat-a-tat-a. Hey, why do they call it that?
What?
Ratatouille. It's like a stew, right? Why do they call it that? If you're gonna name a food, you should give it a name that sounds delicious. Ratatouille doesn't sound delicious. It sounds like rat and patootie. Rat patootie, which does not sound delicious.
This is a Pixar film that is really good, and it's a movie that every single time I forget how good it is, and then I rewatch it. And I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old daughter, and they love this movie, and so they'll often ask to watch it. And every time I watch it, it's better. It's better than the last time I saw it. It's fantastic, and there are three. You kind of have to go through all three of the lines. You can't really just pick one because every single one of them builds. So there's a scene where the little French chef, who is just like the most stereotypical Napoleon complex type chef, who's this French guy yelling, and he's trying to figure out from our main character, how is he so good at cooking this food? Obviously, we know there's a rat controlling him living inside of his hat, but whatever. But so he's trying to figure out, why is the food so good? He wants to understand, like, what are so good. So he opens a bottle of wine, and it's a 1961 Chateau Latour. And he even says the line in the film. The little French chef says, "You have to be an idiot of elephantine proportions not to appreciate this 61 Chateau Latour," which is like really not on the nose at all to like say that, meaning like, because you can always tell when some writer, like John Lasseter opened him up a nice bottle of wine when he started at Pixar, and he's just like, guys, you're not going to believe how my life changed. Like, and I had this, tour. And so like, I mean, it's like right on the nose. This restaurant is hurting for money a little bit. This situation, what he wants to do is like take the previous chef and put his frozen meals in grocery stores and totally sell the soul of what this place is. But I still think opening a wine of that caliber for a measly little, cook at this point, I know he needs a lot from him in the movie. I'm not trying to, but it's just 61 Latour feels a little hot for me. Feels a little big, though I appreciate it. It makes sense. It's fine. This is probably the only kids movie that I can think of that has so many real wine choices in it. I mean, it's amazing.
I'm on the edge of my seat. I've seen this movie once and kind of in parts. I don't really have who's the skinny little one that's like trying to make his name. Is that
that's
Patton
Linguini?
Oswald?
No, that's Linguini is his name.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's really
again, of course that makes sense.
Yeah, right. I know. It's a typical French name.
But you've got Brian Dennehy in here. That's good news.
No, this movie is, by the way, this movie is really, really great. It is a fantastic film. So there's a second wine, and there is this restaurant critic. And back to the days where one critic could literally make or break or shut down a restaurant. This guy is the guy who can turn off the lights in a restaurant with a bad review, this Parisian writer here. And he's played by Peter O'Toole, legendary voice, British guy. Okay. Anywho, he's writing this review of a meal or a restaurant, and he's drinking Gigal Côte Rôtie. You can't see the vintage, but you can clearly see Gigal Côte Rôtie. This is also fascinating because this isn't like a movie like you're talking about where they can just put a bottle and sort of, we're not going to mention what it is. They had to they animated these bottles. Sure. They literally drew the label. Sure. So this is very intentional. So he's drinking a Gigal Côte Rôtie. All right, that's fine. I will say that this critic's name is Anton Ego. So I mean, the names here are kind of a little on the nose here. I'm not sure that says
it's a kids movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I said that this says a good thing for Gigal's Côte Rôtie, that like this incredibly pretentious but talented restaurant critic would drink this while he's shitting on a restaurant writing a review. But but the most important one, the most important bottle in the whole. Give me the home run. This is the last one. Is the third bottle when Anton Ego, the critic, goes in to effectively give the worst review of this restaurant, and Linguini's the chef, and he's been making these incredible dishes. He finds out that maybe making the most simple dish in the world, maybe making something that could possibly break through this guy's hard outer edge of a writer and make him think about simpler things, and he makes ratatouille, which is why it's called that. And this Anton is sitting down. He has one bite. It reminds him of when he was a very little kid and his mother made him, this dish, and it's very poignant. It's an excellent ending, but he's drinking a 1947 Chateau Cheval Blanc, and I have some issues. I mean, I have some issues with this wine. This is a post World War II fantastic vintage in nearly the modern era. So it's like a really old Bordeaux, and he's sitting down to review a restaurant, and this is the bottle he has. So either this goes two ways. One, the restaurant is trying to give him like the best bottle ever so that they'll give him a good review at the cost of a $10,000 bottle of wine.
It's easily a $20,000 bottle of wine on the list. And I just love the fact that whatever newspaper this guy writes for has a hell of a budget.
I'm assuming, it's I mean, I don't know, but it's just a very interesting wine that doesn't need to be there. He would have wine with food, but like there's no pairing menu that has a 47 Cheval Blanc. I'm like just trying. To me, this is a perfect example where I guess the wine works, but like it's what in the hell?
Okay, so as someone that's only seen this again in fits and spurts and never really kind of pay attention,
I really love this film.
I'm going to rewatch it. I'm going to rewatch it in its entirety. But just on the basis of this, the Gigal Côte Rôtie is the one that makes the most sense. Like that's the best casting because it was a newspaper could afford that. It is a beautiful bottle of wine.
What was the other film?
Nice wide variety of food.
Remember in Thomas Crown Affair, there was a Gigal Côte Rôtie he was drinking?
Yeah, exactly.
We called it perfect because somebody with that kind of money, that kind of prestige would drink it. Okay, so
it's
that
not the
works
La
fine.
Long Dawn or the Le Turc or that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I like that. The 47. Congratulations. I mean, listen, we have 3 very dark films that we've talked about, and one kid's cartoon. But think about this, Jason. What's the one thing that the last two had in common? They were both about the wine evoking a memory of childhood or something great, and how it changed the perception of either the Adam Arkin character in Pig or Mr. Ego, the horrible reviewer in Ratatouille, which I think is actually kind of a cool statement about like they got that right. Like they really both got that right.
Yeah. I mean, there's an interesting parallel here. It's the same kind of wine that obviously Miles drinks at the end of Sideways, Cheval Blanc. I wonder if there's something there where you're kind of, I don't know about eating your own words. He's drinking the Cheval Blanc out of a styrofoam cup in a, at a burger joint or whatever. And
like an In-N-Out style thing. When was Ratatouille? When did it come out?
So Ratatouille is a film that came out
07.
07. Okay, yeah.
So that's 3 years after Sideways.
So do you think there's a callback here?
I'd love to think so. I mean, but I don't.
Or
know.
is this,
or is
this just some animator who went to Caltech is like, hey, I have a bottle of this because somebody told me it's good. Like
I too read about Cheval Blanc.
I too have money and went to France.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's great.
I guess across the board, I'm giving what's a really good film and a good film with having a lot of different line cameos, a B probably, because they just went too hard. A good
solid B.
They went too hard, Jonah.
They did.
I feel pretty strongly that if you're like, you don't need to go that hard. Just make
it's
it.
Also,
make it.
Do we also all agree that I'm now seeing that this is an Italian chef working at this French restaurant that makes the best ratatouille? Like, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of juxtaposition.
I think the whole point of this film is constantly I'm an outsider because the kid's an outsider. The rat on top of his head who knows how to cook is an outsider.
Got it.
Like in a lot of ways. But anyways, I love doing this, man. At the end of every one of these podcasts, I know we're just talking to each other, but it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to do this. And please keep sending us your recommendations. We're gonna do a lot more of this coming up, much to the chagrin of some of you, I'm sure. And for the rest of you, send us a recommendation. We want to hear it. And Jonah, I can't thank you enough for being on. Thank you to our producer John Adams for staying here this long and actually having to edit this. And
hey. We're clocking in at like 40 minutes. This is good for us. Usually we would be way into like casting choices at this point. So I feel like this was top line. This was good. And 4 really good movies. I really love these movies. I haven't seen this one. I'm going to check it out.
You need to watch Ratatouille. Watch it with your wife Sarah. She will love it. It's a fun film. And then everybody, please go to Som TV. You can watch Jonah all over the platform. He's a beautiful sight. He's so good looking. Everybody be safe, and we will talk very soon.